channel. My name is Noelle, aka MakeupEsquire, and today I filmed this super easy look. I just used a couple of eyeshadows on my eyelids, and I used some new products that I'm really excited to try. But really the stars of the show for this look are my Chicuhodo Kiwami set. It is some of my most beloved Fude that I own. These are some of the most special brushes in my collection, and there were only 50 of them made. They were limited edition and they came out last year. I wanted to show you how I use them for this look. So if you want to see how I achieve this look, please keep watching. And did my eyebrows off camera. Today I just used the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyebrow pens. I used the shades medium brown and taupe, and then I also went in with the Clé de Peau eyebrow pencil, and I just picked it up. So today is my first time trying it. I'm still getting used to it, so if you want my updated thoughts on this, let me know. After I use it a few more times, I should be able to get a better idea. These are pretty good brow pens. There is a little bit of a learning curve. I already went ahead and used SPF and a primer on my face. For SPF today, I just went ahead and used this Mario Badescu one. It's a mineral sunscreen I recently picked up. It is for all skin types, lightweight sun protection, and it has an SPF of 30. I like to switch up my sunscreens just depending on the day, and I just make sure that it at least has an SPF of 30. Because the weather is getting warmer, I also then went ahead and went in with this Secure the Sweat Dry Till Dawn primer by One Size. And it is a good mattifying primer, I will say. So if you have combination or oily skin, if you get shiny throughout the day in your T-zone, I do recommend this. I just don't like the packaging, so I do hope that they are able to change the packaging, but other than that, it's a good primer. And I just went ahead and also used a tad bit of this color corrector off camera as well, just a little bit around the mouth area and a little bit underneath my eyes to help with that hyperpigmentation prior to starting. I also used a little bit of this Tarte primer. I've talked about it before on my channel. I do really enjoy it. And that's it. Other than that, I don't have anything else on my face other than eyebrow gel. I tried out this new Ardell brow glue today. Somebody recommended it on Instagram, but I picked it up on Amazon and it came with this little brush. I feel like I might have let it sit for a little too long because I did start to see some white flakes that I'm not a fan of. I can later cover that up with a fiber brow gel when that happens, but just so far it does have a really, really strong hold. So if you like that laminated eyebrow look, I do recommend that. Lately, since the weather has started to warm up, I've really been enjoying these two foundations. I've kind of been alternating and switching off between these, or I might also use a more lightweight tinted moisturizer or a tinted SPF on the daily basis. But if I want my makeup to really be locked in and last all day and stay for 8 to 12 hours, then I will go ahead and go in with one of these depending on how my skin feels. If it's a day where I just recently used tretinoin and my skin is feeling a little bit more dry, I'll go in with this Clé de Peau. It's called The Foundation. It has a broad spectrum of 22. And if my skin is not so dry and I feel like it could handle a more mattifying foundation, then I've really been enjoying this new Tom Ford foundation that recently came out. It's called the Architecture Soft Matte Foundation, and I did pick it up in the shade 7.0 Tawny. For today's look, I think I'm just going to go ahead and mix both of these two foundations together. So I'm just going to go ahead and take one pump of the Tom Ford foundation, almost one full pump. Then I'm going to go ahead and take this foundation by Clé de Peau and scoop out a little bit. I'm going to start out with about that much. And I'm just going to put it on this little My Kit Co palette that I have here and mix the two shades together. I'm going to go ahead and use my new Bobo and Bisotto collab Kolinsky foundation brush. It has this beautiful African rosewood handle, and I love how it has this glossy coating on it, and it also has this 24 karat gold ferrule, and this Kolinsky hair is so soft and it's jam-packed with bristles. I love to use Kolinsky. You've seen it in several of my videos. I love Kolinsky hair so much. It's super soft yet resilient and really great for cream and liquid products. And this one's a really special brush because Mr. Bisciotto himself hand bundled the limited amount of brushes that were made, and Mr. Bisciotto is now in his 80s. So thank you so much, Bobo, for this collab. Now I'm just going to go ahead and dip into this foundation mixture that I have here and go ahead and start by applying a light layer all over the face. If you find that a mattifying foundation, kind of like the Tom Ford foundation, is too drying for your skin type, then this is a good way of applying a foundation that will really last, because more mattifying foundations do tend to last longer on the skin than foundations with a glowier finish. But a good way of making your skin tolerate it better if you have drier skin is by mixing it with a more glowy or more moisturizing type of foundation. This Clé de Peau one is not really super matte, but it's not glowy either. It's a nice natural finish, somewhere in between. And it is very natural and skin-like, less so than the Tom Ford. The Tom Ford foundation is a fuller coverage, so that's why it's kind of a good way of diluting it. And I do believe that the Clé de Peau one has a lot of skincare benefits for the skin as well. I do really like the Clé de Peau one, despite the ridiculous price tag, because it just wears so nicely throughout the day. Even if I have any dry patches or anything like that, it doesn't cling or become cakey throughout the day. It really stays put and looking the same way as I applied it all day long. I didn't apply too much of that foundation in the center T-zone area or underneath the eyes because I'm going to be going in with concealer. And a really good one that I've been enjoying is this Clé de Peau stick concealer. I do highly recommend it. I like it so much that I have it in, I think, pretty much every shade at this point. I do really like it because it does have an SPF of 27, and I don't rely on my makeup products to provide me with the most skin protection. I always use SPF prior to makeup anyways. But this gives you really nice coverage and it looks really nice on the skin and it really lasts very nicely throughout the day. So it's a good one to use on any blemishes or even underneath the eyes. But today I'm going to be using a combination of these two. This is the Givenchy Skin Caring Concealer and this is the Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Concealer in the shade 4. I like this Givenchy concealer to use kind of as a concealer all over the face. I typically do like to have two different concealers on hand. One to use on the face where I have any blemishes or anything like that that I want to cover up, just because it's a better match to my foundation. And then I also like to have a brighter concealer to really give me that brightness underneath the eyes and a little bit on the nose. And I'm just going to go in with this BK Beauty and Nikki LaRose collab. It's the N14 brush. And I like to use this little guy for either concealer or to set my concealer with powder underneath the eyes. These concealers are more lightweight concealers. The Giorgio Armani has less coverage, I would say, than the Givenchy concealer, but the Givenchy concealer is still pretty skin-like. You can use it all over the face as a foundation if you want, or combine it with powder foundation. It has a really nice finish. But if you're looking for a concealer with more coverage, or if it's a day where I feel like I want more coverage, then I'll go ahead and use a concealer with higher coverage, such as the Hourglass concealer. The Clé de Peau stick concealer is also a good one to touch up with throughout the day, just because it has that additional SPF in it. So let me know if you want to see like a summer favorites type of video. I could do that as well. A little extra SPF never hurts. It's kind of hard to find a good concealer with any SPF at all, honestly. So now I'm going to go ahead and set my T-zone, and I'm going to be using the Huda Beauty Easy Bake Powder in Cupcake. You've seen this on my channel before. It's really been the one that I've been reaching for lately. I find that it is very reliable and really great at keeping the oils at bay throughout the day. So I'm just going to take my little handy dandy IKEA bowl here and pour some in. I'm going to take my damp beauty blender, but first making sure that there are no creases underneath the eyes, and taking a mirror up above and setting that under eye concealer in place. I like blending out my concealer with a brush more often than with a damp beauty blender, just to keep that higher coverage from that concealer. But I oftentimes do like to apply my loose powder with a damp beauty blender just because I really feel like it gets the powder in there, and making sure that it's damp kind of does a better job in my experience, really pressing that into the skin and melting the powder into the other skin products that I have underneath, which is the foundation and the concealer. I have pretty oily eyelids, so even if I use a eyeshadow primer, sometimes they still crease. So a good way of preventing this, especially if you're going to be out and about and expect to be getting hot and sweaty, a good way of making sure that your eyeshadow primer or concealer that you're using as an eyeshadow primer doesn't move around or slip and slide or crease on you, is to really set it with powder prior to going in with your eyeshadow. I even make sure to get into my eyebrows and make sure my eyebrows are powdered just so that they don't get shiny throughout the day and so my brow products stay put. For bronzer today, I brought out a couple of options. I recently picked up this Chanel face powder. This is in the shade Medium Coral. And I also recently picked up this Giorgio Armani Luminous Silk Bronzing Powder. This is in the shade 90. And I actually haven't tried this yet, so I want to try it for this look. I only swatched it. But it looks like it'll be a good tone since it doesn't look like it'll be too warm. So let's see how it is. And now that I'm going in with my powder products, I will be taking out the stars of the show for this video. And it is what was the inspiration for me to film this video today. I really have been wanting to pull out my Chicuhodo Kiwami set. Especially because there's going to be a price increase, and that will be applying to all Chicuhodo and Eyeshadow Fude brushes. These are handmade makeup brushes, and if you didn't know, Fude means handmade makeup brush from Japan. And this was a very limited edition brush set that came out last year. I picked it up in March of 2023, and the Kiwami sets by Chicuhodo only come out once every few years. They usually come out without any notice, and there's only 50 of these that were made, and they are the most exquisite brushes. They are hand bundled by some of the best artisans in Japan. They look like this. There's a really funny story about the day that these were delivered and the whole lead up to me receiving them. Let me know if you caught that on my Instagram stories. I started this series recently called Backyard Chats, so make sure to follow my Instagram at MakeupEsquire to keep up with me day to day, since I keep that a lot more updated on a daily basis. I usually like taking a little bit of a smaller brush for bronzer, not something that is as big as these two big brushes here. So I'm just gonna go in with this third brush in line from biggest to smallest, and this is Chicuhodo's Silver Fox, and it has this lovely flat round shape to it since it has a more oval ferrule but a rounded out top. And Silver Fox is great because it's silky and more resilient than more delicate hair such as Gray Squirrel, for instance. It also works better with creams and liquid textures. So I'm just gonna go ahead and dip into this bronzer here, just like so. Kind of make sure that the powder is nice and evenly distributed among the bristles. This is not a completely matte powder, which usually I do tend to prefer more matte bronzers, but for the summer, if there's any time of year where I'm gonna go for a more shimmery type of bronzer, it's usually going to be in the summer. Let me know if you plan on picking up any Chicuhodo or Eyeshadow brushes before the price increase, or if you've been stocking up. I'd love to know. The conversion rate from Japanese yen to US dollars right now is also really, really good. So you get the most bang for your buck right now than we've seen in a really long time. I'm just gonna go ahead and go in to the perimeters of the face with this bronzer, as you can see, just kind of testing it out, getting a feel for it, and layering a little bit more. I'm continuously dipping into this pan as needed, just little by little, to see how it builds. It's not getting patchy on me, so that's a good sign already. Applying nice and smoothly on the skin. I like to tug my skin back just to ensure a nice smooth application. If you find that whatever foundation you've been using during the winter months is getting a tad light for you, if you tend to tan during the hotter months like me, a good way of kind of warming up that foundation is by using a nice bronzer. And a good tip is to make sure that the bronzer is a good undertone for your skin type. So for me, I have more olive undertones to my skin. So whenever I can find a bronzer that isn't so orangey or too warm and has a more olive undertone, those usually are the ones that work best for my skin tone. Another good one that I can think of off the top of my head is the Westman Atelier bronzer, the Butter Bronzer. It's a really good one. How do we like this bronzer, y'all? Leave me a comment down below if you think it looks good. So far, so good. I'm pleasantly surprised since I usually don't tend to love bronzers with shimmer, but you don't see very much of the shimmer translated onto the skin once it's on. You can see a little bit of it. I'm hoping the camera's picking it up, but it's pretty hard to detect even in person. I will say I tried the next shade up from shade 90. I think it was shade 100, and it was just too orange for my skin tone. So the shade 90 is definitely better. I'm just gonna go in with my Natasha Denona contour powder. This is in the shade medium. You've seen me use it a million times on my channel as well. It's the perfect contour shade for my nose contour. It's even more cool in tone than the Giorgio Armani one slightly, but the main reason I'm using this on my nose is because it doesn't have any shimmer. It is completely matte. So that's what I recommend for any nose contour, just to make sure that there's no shimmer particles in it. I like to blend my nose contour up into my eyebrows and outward above my inner corner area of my eye, just to make sure it's all nice and blended and I don't have any harsh lines anywhere. Cute, right? I did also recently pick up the Valentino bronzer. I had been wanting to try it forever. Andrea Ali always raves about how good it is, and I love this formula and their blushes. I have almost every single shade. Let me know if you want to see this in a future video, but I have been enjoying this one. For cream blush, today I brought out this Clé de Peau cream blush. This is in the shade 3. And I've only used it one other time, so I'm still getting used to it, but I heard some rave reviews about it and I wanted to try it. So I'm just gonna take this little smaller brush that I have here, and it's the perfect size for this little pot. Make sure the brush is nice and saturated. And I'm gonna take a little bit and just pounce it on my cheekbone area. This is such a pretty coral shade for the summer. They have other colors in this blush as well, but I chose the coral. I'm also taking a little bit on my eyelids just because it's kind of a habit when I'm applying blush. I tend to also dot it a little bit on the forehead area, a little bit on the chin, a little bit on the nose, just to make sure everything's all nice and blended in. Going in with the Red Fox brush in the Kiwami set. Typically this is way bigger of a brush than I would typically tend to grab for blush, but I do want to try it and I also want to show it off on camera for you. This would also be a good brush for finishing powder. I also just picked up this new Clé de Peau blush. It's not new, but it's new to me and I've been wanting to try it. I forget which shade this is, but it's their pink one. They only have a few colors that I saw and I picked it up from Nordstrom. They're 15% off right now. So hopefully they still are by the time I upload this video, but I'm just gonna go ahead and dip this brush into the Clé de Peau blush. Heard really good things about this blush as well. And this sunset blush look is really trending right now, where kind of a mixture of peach and pink. So I'm just taking a little bit and dusting it on top of the cream blush, just to kind of set that cream blush in place and make sure that it's not going to go anywhere, just like so. Chanel just relaunched their single eyeshadows and I did pick up 6 of them. I won't be able to do a look with all 6 of these, but some of them were existing shades as I understand it, and I do believe that only a couple of them are limited edition, which are these more colorful tones. This one's in the shade 232 Lilas Poudre. It's a matte, and this one is in the shade 228 Rose Charnel. It's also a matte. These are just lovely pastel type of shades that are great if you're looking for a pop of color. I did recently do a look where I did a pop of color on the inner corner. I chose blue for that look, but let me know if you'd like to see any of these in action. Today I'm going to be doing a more neutral look that is more friendly for and realistic for every day. I'm going to be using the shade 236 Brune Talpa, and I was curious to know whether this was going to be the same exact shade as their eyeshadow that already existed in the shade Talpa, and I'm pleasantly surprised that this is different than Talpa, and I did use the shade Talpa in my Mob Wife makeup look, so I will stick the iCard up here for you to watch after this video if that interests you. But these are really nice, easy, one and done eyeshadows, perfect for every day. For this eyeshadow, I'm going in with my Takeda Canadian Squirrel eyeshadow brush. I did recently post a video using some of my favorite Fude or Takeda brushes. I did not get a chance to use this brush in that video, so I figured I would showcase it today since it is one of my favorites. It's such a unique shape. I love the slant on it, and the hairs are so soft. This is a natural hair brush, so the fibers really have the ability to pick up the pigment in any given eyeshadow. I would only use this type of natural hair for powder formulas, however. These natural hair bristles are too delicate to use with creams or liquids. But I'm gonna make sure there are no creases on my eyelids, just kind of blending that out with my fingers first, and going in and packing on that Brune Talpa shade on top of the eyelid, really kind of concentrating it in the mid to outer eyelid area. These bristles are so soft, not pokey at all whatsoever. I have Lashify eyelashes on, so it's important for me to use both eyeshadow formulas and eyeshadow brushes that help prevent any of the fallout onto my eyelashes. If it leaves any fallout, I just clean it up with a spoolie. I'll also link in the iCards the video that I did, the Lashify video, showing you how I apply these little lash clusters underneath my real eyelashes. You see how beautiful of a shade that is, just all on its own by itself. This is a perfect one and done shade. You really don't need any additional shadows to make this look good. You could slap on some of your bronzer that you used everywhere else on your face in your crease to kind of tie the look in together. I oftentimes do that. There wasn't a perfectly shaped eyeshadow brush for me to use with like a one and done eyeshadow from the Kiwami series, but I am going to be going in with these smaller Canadian squirrel hair brushes in the series to do the more precise detail work. So I'm going to be taking this little guy right here. This is the flatter Canadian squirrel brush, as opposed to the other one that has a more tapered point to it and has longer hairs. And I like to take this flatter brush to really get underneath the lower lash line. And these little Chanel components are so cute and luxurious. They came with their own little brushes that actually, for brushes that come with single eyeshadows like this, Chanel really has done a pretty good job. I will say I didn't bring them out with me because I got rid of them so they wouldn't be going all over the place, but in a pinch, they do work surprisingly well. And then I'm gonna take this single shadow in the shade 220 Blanc Pearl. It's a satin. This color has a really pretty shift to it. I'm gonna try to swatch it so that you could really see on my hand here. Hopefully it'll pick up, but it looks like it'll be white in the pan, but it doesn't actually come out white that way. You could see it has a really pretty kind of pinky gold shift in the light. Hopefully the camera's picking it up. You could see it here on my ring finger that I used to swatch it. I'm gonna go in with my more tapered brush here. And this is a really good brush. This is a really good eyeshadow to use as like a topper shade or as an inner corner highlight type of shade like I'm using today, just to add a little bit of something to that inner corner. Look at how pretty that is. Cute, right? It's gonna drag a little bit over the center eyelid, kind of into the brow bone area. Leave me a comment down below and let me know if any of you picked any of these single shadows up by Chanel or which one your favorite is. I'd love to know. Okay, moving right along. I'm going to be going in with highlighter now, and I brought out a couple of my Clé de Peau highlighters. I also have this shade Golden Galaxy, but I only brought out these two today. These are some of my favorite highlighter formulas. They just look so good on the skin. They don't emphasize any texture. So if you struggle with textured skin or wrinkles under the eye area where you would usually put highlighter, I highly recommend these highlighters. Tom Ford also has really lovely highlighters, so does Hourglass, but any of these formulas really do a great job of giving you that nice glazed look, but not emphasizing any imperfections on your skin. This one right here is in the shade 21 Daybreak Shimmer, and this one is in the shade 203 Sunset's Brilliance. And this will be really pretty if you have medium to tan or a tan skin tone, especially in the summertime. This is going to be really gorgeous. Kind of even you can use it as like a bronzer topper, or I sometimes dip into these and use them as eyeshadows as well. So I'm going to actually go back into my Chicuhodo Kiwami series here. And for highlighter, I'm going to be using the Kolinsky brush. This Kolinsky brush is such a unique shape. It's that oval ferrule again, except it has a more tapered point to it. it. It's not only tapered on the sides, as you can see, where their hair goes from shorter at the bottom to longer as it gets to the center, but it also is tapered along the edges as well to kind of form this lovely spear shape. It's a very rare and unique shape for a Kolinsky brush. It's perfectly bundled, and the Kolinsky hair, you could tell, is really high quality. So Chicuhodo did a great job with this brush. And I'm just going to be dipping into this 203 Sunset Brilliance highlighter. You can see how the Kolinsky hairs, they just are able to grip that powder on those bristles. Do you see that? I barely tapped into that highlighter. That's the lovely thing about natural hair brushes. And then they have this wonderful ability to lay down the product as well. Using the other side, it's kind of hard to go overboard with these highlighters because they just give such a skin-like appearance. It's not gonna look dusty or crusty or sparkly like with chunks. It's a very sophisticated sparkle, if anything. The camera isn't even doing it justice, but you could see that beautiful shift on the top of my cheekbones. It gives that lovely healthy glow to the skin. It does have a shimmer to it, so if you really are against sparkles or shimmers on your face, then I would say skip these highlighters and go for something with less shimmer, kind of like the Hourglass formula. This point is perfect if you want to just pinpoint a highlight in a rush. You could also use this pointy brush to help get into the smaller areas where you want to highlight. This brush would also be good for concealer. It's the perfect shape to get right underneath your eyes. And like I said, Kolinsky is great with handling creams and liquid. It would also be a really good brush to do pinpoint setting if you want to use it for powder underneath the eyes. I could even see myself using it for powder contour to get right underneath that cheekbone right there. And if you wanted to use it to define other features like sculpt out the eyes with some powder contour as well. So many different ways that you can use this dynamic little brush. This smaller Canadian squirrel hair brush in this series is also really versatile. This one could be used for applying powder blush, for instance. It really can help you get into the smaller crevices when doing bronzer, or even for a little bit of powder contour. So I'll dip back into this Natasha Denona contour powder here just to show you. Put this brush to work. See how it gave a little bit more definition to the cheekbone, just adding a little bit of that contour powder underneath the cheekbone, since I didn't go in with any cream contour, which nowadays I usually do tend to skip, especially when I'm doing my makeup in a rush on a day-to-day basis. Just adding a little bit more of that powder underneath the jawline to emphasize the jawline. I don't put too much contour on my forehead, but if you do have a larger forehead and you want to kind of downsize it or give the illusion of a smaller forehead area, feel free to kind of go over the perimeters to give yourself a more heart shape to your face. I've just wiped off this little tapered brush that I used for that white duochrome eyeshadow, and I'm going to use it to dip into that powder bronzer that we were using earlier by Armani. And I'm just going to swipe a little bit in my crease area just to have a little bit of that tone in my eyes, so that having a little bit of this tone on my eyelids can tie the whole look in together. Just kind of swiping it underneath my lash line ever so lightly, not really adding any additional product. For the lips, lately I've been enjoying these new lip liners by Freck Beauty. They have this really cute packaging. It kind of reminds me of like a 70s vibe, kind of old school. This one is in the shade 4 and this one's in the shade 5. I like them because they have a nice thin point, so you don't have to worry about sharpening them all the time, since I'm pretty bad at that myself. And I picked up 2 shades. One that's closer to my natural lip shade, and this one is in the shade 4. Just gonna overline my Cupid's bow and follow the vermilion border everywhere else. I like how precise these lip liners are. They apply very smoothly and they really stay put throughout the day. I also really love how the finish isn't too shiny on these. I tend to not really like when lip liners have a shiny finish. And I'm going in with shade 5 to deepen up the Cupid's bow in the outer corners of the lips as well. I forgot to apply a lip primer first. I recently picked this one up at Sephora during their sale, and this is the Guerlain Kiss Lip Lift. It's kind of an unnecessary step, but if you really want your lipstick to stay put throughout the day, I do recommend taking a lip primer. It kind of helps fill in those lines as well, and it helps your lipstick apply more smoothly. If you've seen my videos, you know I'm a fan of going in with a lip brush. This one's a Eyeshadow Kolinsky lip brush. I've shown it on my channel pretty much every single time I do my lips. I recommend trying this technique with any lip brush that you might have because it really helps the lip liner stay put and really get into all of those little lines and ridges. For lipstick today, I brought out one of the new Prada ones. This one is in the Hyper Matte formula. I believe it's in the shade Alabaster. I'll leave all of the products that I'm using down below in my description box. I've really been enjoying these Prada lipsticks. They're beautifully pigmented. They have a really beautiful finish on the lips. The packaging is very luxe and it's also refillable. And look at how beautiful that lipstick is. You could just see the texture on the side and you can see where they put the words Prada. And the top, I've used this before, but the top is kind of, you could still see like a triangle shape, kind of like the Prada triangle logo. I like how neutral this shade is. It can really just go with any look. And I oftentimes just kind of blend it into whatever lip liner I'm using that day. And that way I could just grab it and go and it pretty much matches at any look. For bottom lash mascara, I'm still using my little trial size YSL Lash Clash mascara. I don't have the full size, but it's a pretty good mascara. So I do recommend getting the full size if you're in the market for one. And they also have this in the waterproof version as well. I don't really go over the Lashify eyelashes too much with mascara, but every once in a while I will just put a little bit on the outer corners to make my real eyelashes blend in with the fake ones where they stick out on the outer corners. For brow gel, I'm just going to be using this Precisely My Brow Wax in the shade 4.5. This is by Benefit. If you are going in with a setting spray, I do recommend using the setting spray before doing your eyebrow gel and mascara, but I don't always go in with a setting spray. I think if you use a good amount of powder, setting spray is kind of neither here nor there. It'll definitely add to it and prolong your makeup further for sure, but so will a good setting powder, like that Huda Beauty one we used. I'm just using this tinted brow gel just to make sure you can't see any of the white cast that Ardell brow gel might have left on the brows, or to get rid of any of the powder residue from the powder that we applied earlier. Other than that, I have typically just been leaving my brows a little bit more sparse than usual, just for more of a natural look, especially when I'm not going in with such a heavy eyeshadow look. If you want to put a little bit of a lip gloss in the center of the lips, I brought out this Chantecaille lip gloss. It's in the shade Modern. I haven't tried this shade yet, but I do really like Chantecaille's lip gloss formula, and Nordstrom was having a sale. So this is a really good lip gloss if you're in the market for one. It's shiny, it's long lasting, it's moisturizing, but my favorite part about it is that it really is plumping. It doesn't feel tingly. They don't market it as a plumping lip gloss, but for me, I could really tell the difference between a luxury lip product and say something from the drugstore, because of oftentimes higher end and luxury lip products have this ability to kind of fill in the lines and wrinkles on your lips. So since I don't have any lip filler, I could really use that help to give my lips a little bit more plumpness and the illusion that they're more full. I also like how this lip gloss doesn't give you that really gross ring of death that y'all know what I'm talking about. It wears really nicely throughout the day. Pretty simple. This is just a look that I would wear on any given day. I could wear this look to work or a night out. The skin is really what's shining here for this makeup look. And because all of these are such lovely products, they're really gonna last you all day long. As a final step, I'm just gonna go in with this Guerlain Meteorites finishing powder, just because I know y'all wanna see me use the Big Daddy in the Kiwami series. So I could not end this video without showing you how beautiful this brush glides across the skin. This is a gray squirrel brush, and it's just so fluffy and soft and luxurious, and it's perfect to dip into this finishing powder here. I'm just taking a very light wash of that powder onto these bristles and just swiping them across the skin. This just kind of gives a more perfected look to the makeup and ensures that everything is nice and blended in and you have no harsh lines. Beautiful brush. And that's the look, y'all. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, if you learned something, please go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe to my channel. Leave me a comment down below letting me know your thoughts. Let me know what you'd like to see next. And don't forget to turn on your notification bell so you know every time I post a new video.